Hello. Today we are going to be talking about the single AirPod phenomenon. Now, this is really, really prevalent in the modern day, and it is arguably a really, really, really major cause of a lot of mental health problems in the modern world. So today I'm going to go over what it is, why it's so detrimental, and what you can do about it. Let's go. So first of all, what is the single AirPod phenomenon? This is basically a term that I made up where you'll see this in younger generations especially, where they will essentially go about their day doing pretty much everything normal. So, like studying, talking to people, sitting in class, whatever. But they will do it with headphones on. And particularly, I see this a lot with just one AirPod in, which is why I named it the single AirPod phenomenon. Basically, you're going throughout your day being distracted by some sort of digital stimulation, particularly through headphones. Now, I'm not saying headphones are bad. Like, I'm literally wearing headphones right now to record this video, right? But what I am saying is that going throughout your day with headphones on, constantly essentially muting out the real world, is extremely detrimental, and I'll get to why in just a second. So, first of all, why do we actually do this? Why do we go about our day without properly experiencing life? Why do we try to mute things out? Well, the first reason is just overstimulation, right? We in the modern world are exposed to so many modern addictions that we are highly overstimulated, and many of us cannot live normally, cannot feel okay without these highly stimulating addictions. For example, when you're scrolling, that's what your dopamine levels look like, right? And they're progressively getting lower as time goes on because you're constantly spiking and crashing. Your baseline dopamine levels drop lower and lower. And as a result, you need more and more stimulation in order to feel okay. This is the exact same thing that happens when people take drugs, by the way. When you take a drug, at first, it would be a small dose. At first, it would just be a small dose, and you would get that high that that you're desiring, whatever, right? As time goes on, you start to build up a tolerance. Okay, and when you build up tolerance, you need more and more of the drug just to feel okay. So whereas earlier you were fine with just scrolling for 5 minutes a day and that felt like, oh my gosh, this is like so fun, this is so cool. Now you scroll for 2-3 hours a day and you're still bored, right? You can see how you're developing a tolerance to this addiction, to this pretty much a drug, right? Read Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke. She goes into detail about how all modern addictions are literally just drugs, okay? So that's the first reason. You are overstimulating yourself in your daily life, whether it be through social media, whether it be through other forms of short form content, whether that be through video games, junk food, anything like that. You are overstimulating yourself, and therefore you have this need to continue stimulating yourself even while doing other things. In other words, going on a walk does not feel stimulating enough. You are used to stimulating yourself so much, and your dopamine levels are so low now to the point where going on a walk no longer feels stimulating. Going on a walk, just sitting outside in nature and just relaxing there for, an hour or so, right? That feels incredibly boring and understimulating. Therefore, we try to stimulate ourselves more with headphones, AirPods, etc. And what that does is that provides almost a temporary Band-Aid type of fix where you are escaping this understimulation temporarily, but what you're really doing is lowering your baseline dopamine levels and your baseline ability to exist without stimulation properly, so that in the future you rely on this more and more. It becomes, I'm just, scrolling a couple hours a day to now I have my headphones in literally at all times. Literally, I can't even bring myself to go to sleep because I have my headphones in, and I'm using my headphones when brushing my teeth. I'm listening to music while talking to my friends. I can't even have a normal conversation with my family anymore because I'm trying to listen to a podcast at the same time, right? You can see this goes downhill very quickly, just like we talked about with the tolerance effect with drugs. So, essentially, you are overstimulated and you need to stimulate yourself more and more to keep up and feel okay. That's the first reason. The second reason has to do with distraction, right? So there's two things. There's stimulation and there's distraction. So you are stimulating yourself. We already covered that. You are also distracting yourself, particularly from your own thoughts. Because think about what listening to something through headphones is doing. You are essentially muting out either your own thoughts or your environment in place for something manually particularly chosen. You're essentially saying, I don't want to hear my own thoughts, so instead let me plug in the thoughts and opinions of, I don't know, like Drake or Kanye West. What's the other guy's name? Kendrick Lamar, like that kind of stuff, right? You're saying, okay, instead of listening to my own words, I'm going to listen to the words of this podcaster. Instead of interacting with my own environment, I'm going to, look at some YouTuber's newest video, whatever, right? So essentially, you feel like your own life is not good enough, and so you distract yourself trying to escape into someone else's life. You feel like your own thoughts are not comfortable enough for you, so you manually try to plug in the words and thoughts of others through podcasts and music, etc. Essentially, you do not feel comfortable with yourself, and so you try to distract yourself from your reality. Now, stimulation is just a small portion of this, right? Stimulation, we can say stimulation, sure, it's there with the headphones. It's not nearly as much as with scrolling, video games, etc. Distraction is the really, really big thing that I want you guys to understand. Distraction is what you crave with this single AirPod effect, because you are still stimulating yourself. You're still going about your day like normal, doing the normal tasks that you would, but you don't want to actually experience them. You just want your body to be going through the motions. You want your body to be writing with a pencil on paper, doing your math homework, but you want your mind to be enjoying something else. By the way, okay, I know this is crazy, but like, I literally saw someone, like a couple years ago, I saw someone doing their math homework, using their phone, their water bottle as like a phone stand, having their AirPods in, and watching a Netflix show simultaneously. I was like shocked. I was genuinely shocked. And that's an extreme example, obviously, but that really just goes to show you how the world is nowadays. Now, we do this in less extreme ways, like, watching a YouTube video while we go on a walk or listening to music while we do homework, but we're still doing the same thing. The idea is we're distracting ourselves because we don't like what we're doing. We can't accept what we're doing. And so we distract ourselves. It's almost like the person who's like, they like look at chocolate, they like smell the chocolate, and then they like take a bite of healthy food, right? Like you're showing yourself the chocolate, but then you're eating something that you don't like, right? It's the exact same thing. You're doing something that you don't like with your body. You're writing on the paper, doing your math homework, you are going on the walk, but you're not willing to have your mind experience that with you. Your mind and body are experiencing different things because you are essentially covering up your mind with headphones, whereas your body is actually experiencing what it's supposed to experience. So you're distracting yourself from environment. You're also distracting yourself from your thoughts. And this can get especially deep because a lot of people don't feel comfortable with their thoughts. If I locked you in a room alone and like imagine a completely empty room, like a prison cell, right? If I locked you in a prison cell for 24 hours by yourself, you would hate every single second of it because you're stuck there alone with nothing but your thoughts, and you don't feel comfortable with your thoughts, which is why you're constantly trying to mute them and drown them out with your headphones. So this is essentially why we do it. We do it to stimulate ourselves, and we do it to distract ourselves. Now, why is this actually a problem? Well, to start off, it stimulates ourselves, which, as we've discussed, that lowers our baseline dopamine lower and lower and lower with these spikes and crashes. It distracts us from what we're really doing. So in the moment, our productivity is lowered, right? If your friend is telling you about how he's going through a really hard time and you're listening to like this like hype rap music at the same time, are you really going to listen truly as a good friend and feel the emotions that your friend is going through? Are you really going to have that same level of empathy that you did if you just took off the headphones and listened like a real friend? Of course not, right? When you're stimulating yourself and when you're distracting yourself, you're not able to experience that moment to its fullest. And this results in less effectiveness. that being through, social events. So like, for example, with relationships, if you're talking to a friend, this also matters with your productivity, right? If you're like listening to a rap song while also doing your math homework, it can like feel nice, it can feel cool, whatever. But like really what you're doing is you're just giving your brain more things to process. You're simultaneously trying to process words and language and music while also trying to simultaneously process these numbers. And this, sure, it can help you feel like, oh, I'm getting like productive, I'm like feeling it, right? It can help to sort of motivate you, but the truth is the task itself is not motivating you. What's really motivating you is that sense of stimulation. So it reduces your productivity in the moment, and also, just like with stimulation and dopamine, it reduces your ability to exist normally without distraction, right? When you were a little kid, I want you to imagine yourself as a little kid. If I told you, okay, great, we're gonna go for a walk now. Okay, we'll say like, I'm a friend, an older friend or something, and I tell you, okay, great, we're gonna go on a walk now. You're like 6 years old. If we go on a walk together, and I say not a single word to you, how are you going to feel? Sure, you might be a little bit like weirded out. Oh, like why is he not talking to me? But that's it, right? Then you're just, you forget about it. Then you're just a happy little kid just going on your walk, seeing the nature, looking around. You might like, start running around, playing a little bit, and you're fine. You're entertained by yourself. You are self-sufficient. The reason why I bring up childhood is because children are not damaged in the way that we are. We are damaged. All of us, 100% of people watching this video are damaged in this way. Through stimulation, through distraction, we have lost our capacity to exist normally. Children are much closer to how we're naturally supposed to be, our true capacity for enjoyment. That's why children seem to have this limitless, endless joy that we don't, and we say, oh, it's just because they're kids. No, it's not. You're supposed to feel like that 24/7. If you don't feel like a child with that same level of happiness, that means that you have gone through this. That is how you are supposed to feel. And anything that deviates from that just proves that you have been doing something wrong so far, which you need to fix. Okay? So going back to the children example, right? You would be able to go and enjoy that walk. That would be fun. That would be exciting. That would be that would be stimulating. Now, if I were to bring your current self along with me for a walk, and I don't say a word to you, I'm just sitting there. I'm just walking with you, looking forward, not even paying attention to you. How are you gonna feel? You're gonna feel bored. You're gonna feel anxious. You're gonna be like, when can I go back home? You're gonna start itching for your phone. Because you've been conditioned. You have been carefully conditioned to bring your baseline dopamine levels, bring your baseline levels of enjoyment down so you can't possibly function without distraction. Your childhood self was able to function without distraction perfectly. They were just sitting there experiencing what they were actually seeing in real life with just their five senses, no external stimulation. And they were happy. But now you have essentially made it so that you are only able to exist properly with a certain level of happiness and joy and stimulation when you are overstimulating yourself with things like headphones, with social media, etc. So those are the main three things it does. It lowers your baseline dopamine levels. It lowers your productivity in the moment, and it also lowers your capacity to exist without distraction in general. Okay, and the longer you go, the worse it gets, right? As you can see, it's not like, oh, I do this once and then things go bad. It keeps going, okay? If you are, right now, you're maybe feeling a little bit bored, a little bit uncomfortable on a walk just by yourself silently, whereas as a kid, you were happy, joyful, and excited. If you keep going on the path you're on, in a couple years, you're going to feel so much more bored, so much more anxious. You're going to feel depressed, okay? Because think about the trajectory you're going. If you're going in this direction, you will keep going unless you stop something. So what is the solution to the single AirPod phenomenon? The solution is very, very simple. Just don't do it, right? This might be one of the simplest videos I've ever made. literally just don't do it. Now, this means do not distract yourself with external stimulation when you are living life normally, okay? This means when you are eating a meal, don't put in your headphones and try to listen to a YouTube video at the same time. This means when you are in a walk, leave your headphones at home, do not listen to music. This means when you are in school, leave your headphones at home, do not listen to music. This means when you are in a conversation with your friends, you should not be playing a video game at the same time. You should be sitting there, present, making eye contact, and listening properly. Okay? It is that simple, quite literally. And you'll find that the more you reduce stimulation and distraction, the more you sort of dig yourself out of this hole. Your trajectory will start to go upwards again, and you will begin to heal. You are going to begin to regain that same sense of joy like a child that you once had, because you are no longer stimulating yourself. There is this hedonic treadmill theory, and I feel like this really does apply to stimulation as well. Basically, the idea is and this is a bit of an outdated theory, but I think it really does apply well to stimulation. So let's say you are, let's say you're somewhat poor or whatever, right? And you suddenly win the lottery, okay? You're going to be feeling great, amazing. But consistently, researchers have found that your happiness levels, like your baseline happiness levels, I wake up today, how happy am I? That eventually decreases to the point where it's the exact same as what it was before you won the lottery. Okay, the same thing goes with people who get disabilities or injuries. Their baseline happiness levels reset roughly to how they were before they got the disability or the injury. And this idea is essentially like a treadmill. When you're running on a treadmill, no matter how fast you run, assuming the treadmill is set to the right speed, you are staying in the same place. You're moving nowhere. So no matter how many material achievements you achieve and you receive, you are still going to be in the same place in terms of your happiness. And this is essentially my theory with stimulation as well. When you stimulate yourself more and more and more, you are keeping yourself at the same level in terms of you're not moving anywhere on the treadmill. You are staying in the exact same place. But the difference is you've set the treadmill to a higher speed now, to where you need to keep running as fast as you possibly can. In other words, stimulating yourself so much in order to possibly feel okay and to stay here. Otherwise, you fall off the treadmill because you've set it to such a high speed through your fast running. However, understand that we can also condition the treadmill to go slower, just like how it was when we were children, to where the treadmill is going slow, and now we're able to walk at a leisurely pace, we're able to relax ourselves, we're able to live without stimulation, without a single AirPod in, and feel happy, feel okay. All right? So that was the single AirPod phenomenon. Last thing, top link in the description is my full mental health book. So this really, the single AirPod phenomenon, this really goes in with a lot of the different chapters in my book, including enjoyment, right? Because we talked about stimulation and your ability to enjoy yourself, as well as presence, because we talked about, you're distracting yourself from the modern world and you're essentially undermining your presence significantly. So that being said, this single AirPod phenomenon is just one of the things that I discuss in my book, right? We discuss things like this multitasking phenomenon that I discussed with you today, but we also discuss so many more things: how to embody presence in the long term, how to embody enjoyment in your social life. What are the things that you need to know about the nature of these capacities in themselves? We go through so much detail, literally in this level of depth, on specific niche protocols and ideas like this that will help you master your mental health. So if you found this video kind of interesting, if you're thinking, yeah, I want to learn more from this guy, about mental health, whatever, then highly recommend you to check out that book. It will be linked in the description. And yeah, that's all. I will see you in the next one.